I finished the book at 1:45 a.m. last night.
Yeah, so
And
I got a text at like 3 in the morning my time that just said, "What the hell?" I was like, I
I
still got 50 pages, but
I
at
checked.
that point, it's still what the hell, but not as much.
Yeah, your phone was on Do Not Disturb, everyone. I'm a considerate friend. I just had to do something that wasn't yell next to my sleeping husband.
I
So,
did yell, so I'm glad I didn't finish it late at night because otherwise
yeah.
my neighbors would not be happy with me.
Oh man, so much happens. So much happens in this section. Generally, like, okay, we left off. They had just discovered the Irids.
I know, I just went back and looked at all my notes in the last half an hour. I spent the whole half an hour. I had to look at all my notes because so much happened.
Yeah, we could have. It felt like we read half the book plot wise, even though I mean it's a little more balanced than that. But it was a lot. Rebecca lived up to the classic, uh, romantasy cliche of having the last 100 pages. Although me and Amy, we had to start recording because we were just talking about like the last 40 pages, just an insane amount of things they're dropping. Uh, yeah, which Rebecca Yarros does, at least in her fantasy books. I have not read any of her normal romance. Sarah J. Maas is very known for this. It's a thing, but it was chaotic. Oh man. Oh man.
There's just so
Yeah.
much. Oh
Yeah,
man, it's gonna be hard not to just jump to the end. I have so many things.
I know. I know. That's why I was really glad. I normally Amy has read already and I am finishing like moments before we're hopping on the Zoom call is our normal dynamic, which also is very me and Amy. Um but this time Amy finished today just a little bit ago and I finished yesterday and I needed to finish yesterday because I would not be able to even speak or like compose thoughts about it yet. So, anyways, I'm glad I
I
finally.
kind of wish I had more time to process it because I want to like think of possibilities of what exactly happened or what's going to happen. But also I feel like it's going to be good because I'm really amped up about it right now. So I want to talk about it.
I did think about looking up then all of the Onyx Storm fan theories, but I couldn't even touch it. There's so much to cover. Just
I
like
only looked at like one, which I'll talk to when we talk about when we get there because I was confused and wasn't sure if I was missing something. So I just quick like searched something on TikTok, but
yeah,
I'll get
yeah,
there.
yeah. I do think it'd be fun. We could do like a mini episode in between,
I
like
was
a break.
thinking that that'd be good because I feel like I'm gonna have more to say after I process everything a bit. So
Yeah, yeah. The aftermath,
bonus
the
episode.
storm aftermath.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump in with chapter 41. Wow, we have so much to cover. Okay.
I know. That's what I was shaking my head about there. I'm like, woo, I just finished chapter 66. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
41 is also crazy because the
Yeah.
Irids.
The Irids. Okay, we get the slide whistle right at the end of chapter 40. In 41, we confirm that the slide whistle is like what you hear to communicate with all Irids. So then it's like open to them hearing all of them. It's not like the sound of like a bond happening or something like that. Um, which we'll get more into like the Irid magic dynamic later when yeah, we see them again. But yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. And Darna shares her story in this chapter with them. Um, and they say like that was the test and that she failed. This part is so sad. It's so sad. Like she's so proud telling her story. Like she's proud of herself. You can tell she's proud to like tell them, and they're like, "You're everything that's wrong with dragons. You're why we left." It's so sad. Um, the chapter kind of ends by one of the things they are also disappointed in is that they talk about Taryn gave Violet a violent, destructive gift, and they say, but Andarna gave her an even more dangerous one.
Yeah. We also learn in this chapter that all of the other Irids are feather tails, which at
Oh yeah,
first I thought that meant that they were all young, but it just means that they haven't like chosen a den. Is that the right term? Or is den the other one? They haven't chosen like to become something else.
Den. Yeah, Den is the other one
Yeah.
with yeah, with the other dragons that we know of, Den is their color,
Okay.
and then species is their type of tail. So like yeah, like sword tail that's blue, you know. That's how they refer to it in Fourth Wing Book 1, at least. So this would be they're all feather tails, is like the species more than, and then like Irids. But it seems more complicated because it's not Irids as a den. Like there's dens within the Irids. Like it's like the Irids are their own kind of dragon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, or their own like political structure.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, it's like the Empyrean versus Irids kind of.
Yeah.
Either way, yeah, we've got that.
Also, we
Um,
learned that there are hundreds of Irids. So
yeah,
I wasn't expecting that, but
yeah, and they live elsewhere, like in their own area, which we did not find. We being Violet. Yeah, so because they came to Violet. So yeah. In chapter 42, we get the outright, they're rejecting Andarna. Um, again, sit there, Andarna's magic is just choosing violence. But then we get like a couple who at this point, I think one of them is Andarna's dad. We later confirm not true. The one whose name starts with an L, Letheno,
Leo
maybe?
Leothan? Leothan, I think it was.
Great. Um, yeah, so I thought Leothan at this point was her dad. He stays back because he wants to hear her out a little more. But then Xaden shows up and they see the red in his eyes and are like, hard pass, you've aligned yourself with evil. Absolutely not. Um,
They also
yeah.
talk about here that what happens with the Venin is that their soul isn't kept by the earth, but it's killed one piece at a time. Which I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious if that's just what they perceive or if that's actual like fact of some kind, you know?
Yeah. I definitely think we have enough things confirming from Theophany and things other people say that like they don't have a soul really anymore in the same way, at least.
Yeah, the only thing is like with Theophany, I don't trust anything she says because she even says something about how they lie, and I'm like, okay, so we can't trust anything coming from her. Like, it's possible it's true, but because I'm not saying that they do have souls, I just am questioning whether or not they do. But
Yeah,
eh.
yeah, yeah. Let's circle back to that when we get to more about Dune and Theophany because I feel like there maybe is something there with her being a former priestess.
Yeah.
Lots to
Oh,
cover.
there's
Okay.
so much to cover.
There's so much to cover. 42 ends with Darna running into the jungle to not see any of them.
I was so sad at the end of that chapter. Oh, this whole
It's
section for Adarna, my heart is just breaking.
yeah, Darna. Yeah, there was a lot of sadness in this whole chunk of the book. Um, okay, chapter 43 is primarily Riddick has realized that obviously Xaden is Venom. So him and Violet come to an agreement about like what lines will you cross for him, what won't you cross, things like that. Um, oh, yeah, classic. Xaden and Violet also have a conversation where Xaden's like, uh, oh, yeah. Sorry. Got confused there about my own notes. Okay, the other thing that Riddick says that I think is really good is that his big argument with Xaden that they should tell more people is that currently everyone who knows is more invested in Xaden's safety. Like they're Xaden's people first. And so he's making an argument that they need people who know about Xaden who are just concerned with Violet's well being, which is good. I do think, obviously, like Garrick, Imogen, Bodhi all care about Violet. They are all trying to advocate for her to keep her safe, but I think it's a very valid point he makes there. Mm-hmm. We also find out, and Darna is still upset through this. Xaden is blaming himself. We kind of get a lot of that moving forward. Themes for the next like 10 chapters.
We also get with Riddick talking about like where to draw a line. He's worried about when they eventually do come for Xaden, when other people figure out that the easiest way to kill Xaden is by killing Violet, which I feel like is pretty significant. And based on how the book ends, I'm a little worried for Violet's safety. So,
yep, for sure. For sure. Violet is pretty pissed about this because she's like, this is just like going back to first year when I'm like the weak link to get to you. And that's not how she views herself anymore, which I think is fair. Both sides are fair, makes sense. I also think it's just insane that they would kill Violet just to kill Xaden. I get Xaden is a huge threat, but the way killing Violet kills Xaden is Violet will die, and the assumption is that Taryn will die.
yeah.
Like, and to lose that powerful,
everybody will die. So
yeah. God. Which then they're like, and then potentially Sigale will die, which will kill Xaden. But it's really like there's a couple stages that are not guaranteed in that, one. And two, to lose Taryn and Sigale is insane. That would be such a crazy move for the war.
Yeah. I feel like it's not going to actually happen, but I feel like it might be something that somebody considers and like tries to attempt to do potentially. So,
oh, it's very General Atos coded. Like he's going to try for sure. He is, or someone. Melgren, someone's.
I was gonna guess maybe Melgren because if then Taryn died, he would have the most powerful dragon, or he already does, doesn't he?
He already does.
That's already
see. That's why I'm like maybe Melgren, but also maybe not because maybe the bot like Taryn and Coda, like maybe he has more connection there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something. We'll see in like 2 to 3 years.
I know. I have to wait a couple of years. Oh man.
Yeah.
Gives me a lot of time to think about what just happened.
Yeah. Okay, we also Violet gets another note from Theophany, and we find out that Queen Maria, I can never remember how to Mariah, is dead, which makes our spooky question boy, Viscount Chikaris, the king.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I feel like we barely have touched on that, even though that happens like over 100 pages, 150 pages before the book ends. Yeah. Not a ton happens with him, but
yeah,
that'll be
we talk more about because that makes Cat now like essentially after him.
Well, after her sister and then her.
Yeah. We're meaning the same thing. Yeah. So essentially, she is the same rank as Arik, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
As like princess number two, the Spare. So
Mm.
sad.
Yeah, she's a
Uh,
princess now, isn't she? Or
yeah,
is who knows? Princesses are complicated. I don't know if she officially gets that title. Anyway, whatever.
that's true.
Mhm.
That's true. As like the niece, still,
Yeah,
who knows?
yeah. She's second in line for the throne.
That's what matters. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we get all that. That's all chapter 43. Chapter 44. They are back in Besgaiath and they're in Battle Brief. Um, this we get a lot of Violet being like very overwhelmed at how much the war has progressed, which makes sense. We find out that 12 Venin took out an entire city and like destroyed it and the population. We see a continuation of refusing to take refugees. There's a lot going on that's like a lot of grief. We also find out the Venins somehow they have some inside knowledge about what's happening with the military because they targeted the city because they knew the alloy daggers were going to be there to be distributed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is one of it's not really the first like leak of information we see, but it's one of the big ones.
Yeah. I know
That
this
is,
had me thinking that there must be, venom within Besgaiath because we also had that moment where that was it a first year who um channeled and while they were like sparring and then was killed immediately. So I'm like, there's probably other venom, but we don't really come back to that. So
yeah, let's make a note. Things we want to talk about when we get to the end of the book. I'm going to make literal notes. Okay,
yes.
one, the end of the book, let's talk about how many Venin do you think are in Pescaiath? Okay, great. I just feel like it's hard to talk about until we talk about like without talking about like Panchak and Zayden and everything from the like chapter 65. And if we start talking about that, we're just going to talk about it, you know? So I'm like, we got to come back.
Yeah. I know
When,
now I'm thinking here you have at the end of the book. Okay.
I know. Okay. So, in Battle Brief, uh, Ree also says that they would need to send Violet. Like she's the most logical person to send, even though she's a cadet, because against like Theophany and specifically the Venin in this case, which causes a whole thing. Um, and then I thought so. Violet starts talking with Sawyer about accommodations also in this chapter for him to be able to ride again. It's not till a little later. Um, but I really liked the section of Sawyer figuring out some accommodations to ride. So sweet, very emotional. So we'll talk about that more. I also thought it was a nice way to like bring back the like chronic illness disability awareness without just continuing to like injure Violet and then make her like push through her injuries, you know? So yeah, I thought that was kind of good and a cool way to have Violet then be like the safest advocate for him too. So yeah. And the chapter ends with Violet telling them all about Zayden being Venin. Which we barely address. Like, as far as the ramifications, like everyone is pissed she kept a secret again. That's the one line we get about their reactions.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't that upset by it, but you pointing it out, it's like, yeah, there'd probably be more to that. But they were also
Yeah,
very understanding the last time she was keeping secrets. So I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I think just purely plot wise, there's so much going on in the book that like telling them is such a subplot. It just also is crazy when you think about how much of a subplot that is, that like we can just brush past that
Yeah.
without like, yeah, talking about it more. So, um, yeah. Then, 45, chapter 45,
Hmm.
we do practice battle mounts. Violet and Taryn do some crazy ones where he's just like, yeah, anyways, they do some crazy things. We get a lot of Taryn leaning into like he trusts Violet's gonna like stay in her seat and just does crazy flight maneuvers. I it does actually reading this specifically about Taryn makes me wonder if Rebecca Yarros either like what part of her family connection, if they're Air Force and if they're fighter pilots.
Mm.
Because some of like his maneuvers and flipping upside down is very like Top Gun coded, you know, uh, like Dragon Top Gun. So that would make a lot of sense. Like
I
we know
just love, I love thinking of Fourth Wing as Dragon Top Gun now.
it kind of is a little bit.
I've never actually seen Top Gun, but
To be honest, have only seen Top Gun Maverick. What a time, I guess. Awkward for us. Anyways, yeah. So that's what I thought about. I was like, I wonder if she's some fighter pilots in her military family. Anywho, Violet gives Zayden a bracelet in this. I completely forgot this happened until looking at my notes. And it has onyx and a piece of the, like one of the trellises from his home. I thought that was going to come up and be more significant, not addressed at all. So maybe in the next book.
I feel like it'll be a thing in the next book that he has and is like thinking about her kind of thing. I don't
Yeah,
know. We'll see.
yeah, could be. Um, my next note, Zayden and Andarna are still moody. Again, a note for the next 10 chapters. And then we have Felix comes because he is like, Violet needs better training and to tell them that the wards are failing.
Yeah, I was concerned about this, and then I started reading the next chapter, and the first sentence of the next chapter is 3 weeks later, and I'm like, you just told us we have less than a month for the wards, and then you jump 3 weeks later? I was losing it.
Okay, this is a prime example. I am curious, how do you feel about the pacing of the series generally? Because I feel like we've got a good like sense of Rebecca Yarros. I ask because I have a friend and I know of she's not alone in this opinion, but it really bothers her that like the chapters kind of end on cliffhangers and then we don't get all the conversation and the emotional like them dealing with the impacts of it and often just like skip ahead like we do a little time jump either days they're back at school they're back at Ryerson House they're whatever she jumps forward. Anyways, I'm curious, do you feel like that bothers you? Did you even notice it reading?
I mean, I obviously notice it right here because I just said that, but for the most part, it doesn't bother me. I think it was just this that there was a very specific thing like, oh,
Yeah,
I would have waited a month if we had a month, and then it jumps to 3 weeks later. I'm like, what happened in those 3 weeks? I feel like that's an important time, but for the most part, I don't mind the time jumping because I don't know, it'd be a lot. Because otherwise, if you capture every little detail, then each book is only going to cover like a month, you know? Like, so
yeah.
I don't mind it too much. Do you have feelings about that or?
I feel the same way, and especially compared to when we look at like this versus the Twilight universe. In Twilight, besides New Moon time jump, we get basically every thought in Bella's head for 500 pages and then find out it's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Like,
see, that's the thing. Like the pacing when you compare it to Twilight, like the pacing in Twilight's insane, and you're like, all of that happened in like a year and a half. That is absolutely crazy. Versus, and that was, 4 books versus this were 3 books in, and it's been like 2 years. But
yeah,
I don't know. I don't mind the
yeah.
pacing.
No, I think I prefer it, but I know I generally prefer pretty fast-paced books, and I think you have to do this to have it be fast-paced. I
Yeah,
also
because
it's
this is like 600 pages almost, and
mhm,
like. Yeah, if you went slower, it'd be like 12 books in the series, you know?
yeah, yeah.
At
It
least.
would just be it would be too much. I think it's a sign of like good editing actually that she like knows when to just like jump ahead and what needs to get cut. And I wonder if she writes all of it and her editor advises that, or if this is how like she initially writes. I
Yeah.
don't think we ever know until she like retires and then starts going on like speaking circuits about her writing or something. But yeah, it was really interesting. I have been listening to a lecture series by Brandon Sanderson about writing fantasy, and he specifically was talking about how you write thrillers versus other books. And Rebecca Yarros absolutely follows the pacing and like the cliches of writing a thriller,
Yeah.
which makes sense. It's like you do short chapters, your every chapter ends on a cliffhanger. You generally keep the book 80 to 100,000 words. Otherwise, people get a little crazy about your constant cliffhanger, short chapter, cliffhanger, short, like,
Hmm.
which it is a lot by the end of 600 pages, since that's more, excuse me, more than your standard like thriller book. Anyways,
I
I
know.
just thought
I've
that.
been reading this book and then I was reading another book also, and I've gotten so used to the short chapters. And the other one had really long chapters. I was reading for like an hour and a half and was still on the same chapter. And like, oh, I really like short chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good for the ADHD. I
Yeah.
was thinking about like we're reading like 20, 25 chapters in the like fourth wing chunk. And granted, we're reading more, but in Twilight, we were covering like sometimes like 6 chapters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so definitely like different, yeah, lots of different structuring of the book, which is probably as much of a tangent as we should do on that topic because there's so much of the plot. But I just thought it was interesting because it's a thing people complain about with or like about Rebecca Yarros's writing style. It's polarizing.
46. Yeah, my first note is about that it was a time jump, and I'm like, what happened in those 3 weeks? But
Mm-hmm. Yep. My first note is we're back in the Zayden Violet relationship nonsense slash are they gonna break up slash both trying to be overly self-sacrificing.
yeah. See, I have never been worried about them breaking up because of their bonded dragons. Like, if they didn't have that, I might have, like, it has not even entered my mind as a possibility. Like,
Fair.
until maybe now, but kind of not. It's
Yeah.
complicated. We'll get there.
We did also talk about in book one, I mentioned that Rebecca Yarros had said their end game in a
Yeah.
interview. So
I just
I
never
do
fully
kind of,
believed that for whatever reason. I was
yeah.
like, she
I feel
didn't
like
mean that.
that's because it's an insane thing for a romantasy author to say
Yeah.
one book into her 5 book series. That's an insane thing to give away. But whatever. I'm thankful for it because I'm just like, I'm gonna believe you. I'm gonna believe that's real. Yeah. Anyways, I yeah, I do think the back and forth is like obviously not my thing. It's my biggest critique of Iron Flame. I posted a hilarious meme about Zayden and Violet's relationship that was Troy Bolton and Gabrielle from High School Musical 2 singing the like, what about us? What about everything we've been through? But what about trust? You know, that scene. And it is perfect for their relationship dynamic there. Anyways, so I think that's part of, I just like roll my eyes because it's dumb, but also I'm like, they're teenagers with insane trauma pressure. It's fine.
I just have to say, you keep calling them teenagers. They are like 25.
I think they're younger than that.
Okay, they're at least 22.
Yeah, because she's like 18 when she joins, right? 19? She's 20. Okay. They're 22. Or
at least 20. Yeah, because they talk about, I think, her having a 21st birthday in the first book, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's how book 2 starts, is she slept through her 21st birthday. Yeah. So she is 21 or 22.
Yeah.
Still, she's very young adult. Your brain is not developed yet. It's fine. Yeah. So, anyways, and then we find out that Lynx is a shadow wielder. Very interesting. Lots with the magic always in balance. Did I think, who is Lynx again? What is your connection to this whole place? Yes, a little bit.
I technically asked, did we ever get introduced to Lynx? Was that the first time they said his name? I think it could be, but I'm not positive, and I don't have this one where I can look by word, but
I do think he came in with the crew, like with Sloane and Arik. Like he's part of that crew in their year.
Oh, yeah. I did just look because I'm like, oh, I can look on Iron Flame because I do have that as a digital book. And yeah, he's introduced in Iron Flame as like just with a group of people. So
yeah. But that's kind of all that we've gotten. Anyway, so I forgot he was a character and now he's a shadow wielder, so that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, chapter 47. This is where I cried a lot. Oh, sweet. Yeah, so first we get Sawyer rides. Hooray! Yay, Sawyer. Pretty emotional, like his vulnerability, the one-sided conversations we get with him and his dragon about both of them feeling like they're letting the other down and like want the other one to be proud of them. Anyways, just kind of sweet. And then we immediately transition into Violet talking to Andarna, being like, you can grieve this loss you have. And Andarna's like, you don't grieve. Taryn doesn't grieve. And she's like, you're right, we need to be better. Like, and it's just,
yeah.
It was rough. It was rough, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, 48, I just have one note, which is
for 47, before we get there, the end of the chapter, kind of significant. Brennan knows that Xaden is Venom, which I had a note here. I'm like, he just seems too chill about it. He just seems too chill, you know? Like, so
yeah, we didn't get, there were so many fan theories around like what's up with Brennan. I feel like we get very little interaction with Brennan in this whole book. And we have one thing that I'm like, what? This is very suspicious. Which we will get to later with involving Sloane and Dane. There's just some weird stuff. That's one of the like left open new questions I have is around that. But yeah, Brennan is real chill. My only thought around this is one, he's known for a long time. Two, maybe he knew about Nolan like doing all the mending with Jack Barlow. Like, I don't think that really makes sense because we haven't got any interactions between the two, like between Brennan and Nolan. But seemingly, Nolan is still at Besgaiath, right?
Mm-hmm. He's mentioned during this section, like we don't actually see him, but there's mention of his name at some point. But
Yeah, I feel like he gets mentioned in this book, but just Violet saying she's like,
she
will
didn't
not.
want to go there, like if she gets injured, I think was how it was mentioned. But
Yeah. Um, so I'm curious because Brennan is spending like a few months at the beginning of the book. So seemingly they would have talked. They're the two menders the continent has.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. So we'll see. And clearly we know in this section that Brennan knows something about the mending Nolan did on Jack Barlow because he says that maybe he thinks it was less effective with Xaden because Xaden was like further gone than Jack Barlow. But also, I'm like, wait, but you weren't trying to mend Jack Barlow from being venom. You were trying to mend him because he was dead. So there's just a lot that doesn't.
But was he trying to mend him because he was dead? Because we learn in the next chapter that seemingly the first time that Jack majorly channeled was when the cliff incident happened. So I think we all presumed he was dead when in reality he was venom.
Well, but he already was venom before that
Do we know
because,
that for a fact?
yeah, we know he was venom since he challenged Violet on the mats, which I think is
Why do we know
before they.
that?
I think they say it in Iron Flame in this one. I don't know. We don't interact with Jack Barlow that much in this book, right?
Yeah. I just had a note. My only note for chapter 48 was talking about how it said that what was it? Zayden's talking about how many days he's like not channeled, and he said 76. It's twice Barlow's longest stretch without draining after his first significant channeling, the cliff incident. And I just noted that and was asking about. It's also weird that he says first significant channeling, because what about the insignificant? So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I think he was already a venom. I know we were talking about something serious, but me and Amy started reminiscing about High School Musical 2 soundtrack uh, in a quick little recording break there while we were in between Zoom meetings. So that's all my brain is thinking about now.
Now we were talking about how High School Musical 2 is the best movie of the High School Musicals and the different songs. And now instead I have Huma Huma Nuka Nuka Apua Ah stuck in my head instead of whatever that one is that you were saying the lyrics to. Oh, gonna have to listen to that soundtrack now.
Incredible.
Back
Okay.
to Jack being vetted.
Back to Jack being Venom. Okay, I do think when they talk about how many days Xaden has made it, is that the end of 48? Or is that
No, it's
49?
only a couple pages in. It's
Oh,
kind of in the
okay.
middle.
Okay. My note about it is on chapter 49. But maybe they talk about it more. Um Either way, both of these chapters happen in Xaden's room with them talking about Xaden being Venom, then deciding if they should have sex. So, and then having sex. Classic. But one of the first, like, very large, spicier sections of the book. So,
Mhm.
there's that. Okay, chapter 50. This is where we got to just skip past that because this is where things get interesting. We find out officially Violet's second signet, which does make me be like, okay, Rebecca, you were right. You did talk about that a
Yeah,
lot in Iron Flame.
it's true.
We were all just too excited. Uh, yeah. So we find out Violet is a dream walker. Ooh, that's her gift from Andarna. We also find out she can meddle in the dreams. She's not just seeing them, she can affect them. Um, I thought this I thought this was interesting. Okay, because here's some things I want to discuss about this Dreamwalker signet. We obviously don't know a ton, but Zayden says it's a form of precog, aka like cognition, and we know a lot of precogs are immediately executed. Classic, of course, they would both have a signet that just people knowing about.
You mean intrinsic, right?
No, I do not.
Does he say precog?
I think so. I can look.
Just because I know they talk about it being intrinsic and we learn later about who has precog, but I didn't think that this was necessarily precog because it's just going into other people's dreams unless people have dreams that are telling the future.
Yeah, yeah. No, it does make more sense as a
Because I did have a
uh
question, like wondering if some of these dreams were telling the future, but we don't for sure get that. But well,
mhm. I'm almost there in the book.
yeah, Zayden says that it's a form of intrinsic.
Mm.
What I see.
I'm
Are you humming High School Musical?
humming it again while I was looking. Okay, whatever. We'll just assume
I
maybe
I
that.
just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something there, but that's fine. We
No,
can
that's why I
go
was
on.
laughing. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to spend all this time rereading it. We'll just believe I wrote it down wrong. That's possible. Either way, um, yeah. So we find out this is illegal, and that this they compare it to like. See, I think I was confused because he specifically compares it to like Melgren, who then is seeing the future. But that doesn't make as much sense as comparing it to Zayden's. Maybe I should have. I closed the book.
Are, are
So,
you maybe confusing it when we learn later about Arik? That gets compared to Melgren. Whatever. We can keep moving out unless there's something specifically you want to
either
talk
way, yeah. Okay. The thing I wanted to talk about is
about.
not about any of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The point being, one, of course, they both have secret signets that will get them killed.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. Um,
Which I don't really
two,
think it would, but I also get where they're hesitant. I don't know. Because Dane isn't a
yeah.
form of intrinsic, and he's not killed.
Yeah. Yeah. But they say with Dane, it's because they can control if he's touching them,
Yeah.
where Zayden's still like automatic around them. And then Violet's the idea. So this is what I want to talk about basically is that they act like Violet's is a bigger deal
Yeah.
because people can't shield from this, and that the dangerous thing is that you're learning people's greatest fears, which I get is like an advantage in war, but also doesn't seem like national security threat. You need to kill them.
I think I had a problem with this here about it being like so dangerous or whatever, and like about like, yeah, just about that, I guess. Because I'm like, I get where people can't shield themselves from her power. That makes sense. So that does make it dangerous in a way. But I'm just thinking in the context of like dreams I have, they don't have anything to do with my real life ever, ever. Like, so I'm
Yeah,
like, and I get this is a world with magic and things. So maybe there's something to do with that and things are different. And obviously, like the dreams that Zayden's having, or the one that we learn, I think just in the next chapter, is Marins or Marins. Oh no, it's this chapter, isn't it?
Hmm.
Um, like that those are obviously actually related to real things going on in life, but I don't know. I'm curious to see how this power continues, like, because also like everybody makes it seem like a big deal. Like the Irids did too, talking about the gift that Andarna gave her, and I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, and then like so maybe it's a bigger deal because she can like meddle in the dreams, but to me that makes them even less reliable because it's not just people's subconscious, like she's affecting it.
Yeah.
And then but the only examples we get are with the dreams with Zayden's uh like they keep calling him the sage, but I think we have confirmed it's not a he's not a sage. He's whatever his name is who controls him, who turned him. Right?
Berwick or
Bernard. His
Berwick?
name is not. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's officially confirmed, but I think you can make that conclusion. But yeah. But Berwin is a sage, right?
He's a sage. I thought he was a maven also because he's like the
Okay,
competition
maybe.
or with Theophany. Like they're against each other to impress some greater venom that we don't even know about, apparently.
Yeah, I'm a
There's,
little fuzzy on all of the lore, to be honest. So
there's so
the
much
different,
built up. It's insane.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Either way, but this dream seems unique because the venom then is talking right back to Violet about things imminently slash about to happen. So like she is impacting what happens in the dream, but with someone else who also is impacting what happens in the dream slash is this even a dream or is this like him calling to Zayden's subconscious? It's very unclear and messy. So I don't really know what's up with that. But the chapter ends with them being under attack. Hashtag again. So there's that. I am curious the number of chapters that end with Taryn yelling into Violet's mind, someone's coming, a thing, attack. I feel like it's a significant amount of chapters.
Yeah.
Like more chapters end with that situation than our smut, for sure, in
Oh
this
yeah,
book.
I believe that for sure.
So
Especially in this book.
yeah. But so many of them. Taryn's always yelling. They're
Yeah.
under attack. Anyways, okay, chapter 51. Um,
I was real
we
worried something really bad was going to happen because it's noted that she isn't wearing her armor. So,
right, right. I was like, how is that just fine? Mira literally told you to never not wear it.
yeah,
Anyways,
just a little
um,
red herring to make everyone panic.
yeah, clearly. It is a pretty intense battle scene. We also have Taryn being a baddie general, so cute for him, and very much the like what they were talking about earlier of like regardless of what Violet wants, like Taryn is going to lead armies, and we kind of see that tension between him and Rhiannon's dragon. So yeah, or not really from the dragons, but Rhiannon's command
Yeah.
and versus Taryn. So yeah. Um, Arik also says in this chapter, the timing is terrible. Uh, he says that they need to guard the Temple of Dune. Does he explain more? No. Does he say anything else? No. They just basically ignore it. It wouldn't even have happened except for Andarna, which now we know would have dramatically affected the plot long term. So,
I know.
thank
I
goodness.
highlighted him like saying that, and my only comment is, "What the fuck does Arik know?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, he obviously knows something, but
Yeah.
this, yeah, timing was really bad.
Yeah, like he clearly knows something is a big freaking deal throughout this, and his timing is so bad, and he never follows up about any of it with Violet. So that's
In
just insane.
hindsight, knowing what we know in the end, why couldn't he have planned that out better? Maybe he's
Yeah,
intentional. Who knows? Whatever.
who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So, we've got that.
I do feel like in perspective, we have to keep in mind he is a first year and who knows how recently this power started manifesting. So could be brand new.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's true.
yeah.
I also don't know how much like interactions we honestly get between the two of them. Like, there's not a clear opportunity, but it still seems like better than in the middle of battle twice.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair.
a thought. Just a thought. Maybe he could have like prioritized that earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, I have some theories about Violet's hair being tied to some ritual that keeps her safe, but now I'm like, nope, that's nonsense. That's not what's going on. Um,
About her talking about how everything is like chaos as they're gonna go into battle, except for the temple attendants who serve Zanal and how they're on the front steps of their shrine drinking as they pass over. And I'm like, this just totally reminds me of your stereotypical like Midwestern dad who goes on the porch and watches a tornado roll in. All I
with
can
his
think.
hair being like, looks like a big one.
Yep. Yeah.
That's so funny. True. True, true. Um, okay, we also find out Andarna is guarding something outside the wards in this chapter. I say, I think it's the temple. I was right. I think it's somewhat obvious it's the temple, personally. But, and then the chapter ends with Taryn is hurt, and Theophany has arrived. Bum, bum, bum.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, chapter 52 opens. Taryn has been stabbed. Violet is nearly burnt out. And then, but nonetheless, I'm cackling in this section. Why? Because the visualization of Antarna standing in front of the temple with all the like priestesses, people. What is the name for the people who dedicates? I don't know, the people who've dedicated themselves to this temple, who work at the temple. I
Yeah.
don't remember
I
what
don't know.
specific
Temple
name.
attendants they've been referred to, but
Okay, great. Anyways, but it's just all of them standing there with their swords around Andarna. And I just think this is such a funny, I like laughed out loud. It's not a laughing moment, but I thought the visualization was just so funny to me. Uh, yeah, yeah, uh-huh. And like classic Andarna. I do like Violet makes a comment like, she literally never once has stayed where we've asked her to. Like,
Mhm.
not once, which is funny. So, yeah. Um, we then have uh, Theophany was scared of something. And then I was questioning in this section, was it the Irids? Was it Dune? I think it's pretty clearly the Irids. What do you think? Was that your
Um,
interpretation?
my initial interpretation was that it was the Irids, but looking back, I was wondering if she knew that the Irids meant that the wards were coming back up.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah. We also find out Theophany was a priestess. which answered our when we were talking about, wait, why are we talking? What is the significance of the faded head tattoo?
Mhm.
You know, and that was clear. It was about Theophany.
Yep. Yep.
So I missed
I
that.
know.
If that's
I had a note there. I was like, oh, that was the significance about her talking about that faded tattoo.
yep, yeah.
Got one of
So
my questions answered.
right, yeah. There we go. We have one question that came up in this book that was answered in this book. We have questions that were answered from 2 books ago. We have a lot of new questions, but yeah, we got one. Okay.
So many
Uh,
new questions in the last 3 chapters. So many.
so many, so many. Then we've got the wards are up, the irids are there. Then I have Segale is pissed about something.
What? Sagale? No.
Classic. It just says parentheses. It says wards up, irids here. Parentheses. Segale pissed. LOL. Don't know. Can't remember what about. Yeah. Then in 53, we have Segale being the ultimate mama bear. She's so defensive. She like they're like basically like criticizing Andarna being like such a fierce, like violent creature, and Segale is like, she's a credit to her kind. Like
She's
clearly like
such
so
a
proud.
mama bear.
Oh, so cute. Um, yeah, so cute. Then Leothor, is that how we're saying his name?
Leothin.
Leo?
Where do we get the R from?
I don't know. In my notes, I wrote Leneithor, which is 100% just vibes of
Yeah,
what I
it's
remembered.
Leothan. So it's so.
Hey, N's and R's look similar as letters. So, anyways, that's just hilarious. I literally was like, should I go back and look how to spell it so that I say it more correctly? And I was like, nope, just gonna guess.
I know. I do have in my notes, I have been using like voice command to enter my notes, so lots of spelling mistakes. And I do find it funny that it keeps auto-correcting Zayden to Satan. Like, I should have waited until you finished drinking there before I said that, but yeah. And it does not know what Andarna is. And it keeps auto-correcting irids to earrings. Lots of weird spelling mistakes, but anyway, I digress.
Funny. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, anyways, uh, he gives Andarna a choice on she can break the bond. He's like, I fired the ward so that your human will be safe. Break the bond with her and come with me for a couple years to have the opportunity to learn of our kind. You were judged too harshly. And Darna seems like very hesitant about this. She can't make up her mind. So then he is like, oh, it also should be noted this is just Andarna, him, and Violet because they've cut out Segale and Tarn and like Rhiannon and everyone else around. So um, yeah, he is really upset. Uh, nope. And Darna is really upset and feeling like very conflicted. So he's like, ask Violet. Violet says like she would miss Andarna so much, but she doesn't want to hold her back essentially and wants her to have the opportunity to know like her family and her culture. And then the bond is broken.
I literally screamed at this. I literally screamed.
Yeah. And then Andarna leaves. I think, tell me, do you think Andarna broke the bond? I think what's his face did. Like as soon as Violet was like, gave him the hint of permission, and then Andarna is like, I don't know how to like break the bond, and he's like, you're pure magic, which also let's talk about that. you like formed this, you can like unform it essentially. Like you don't have normal rules. And then Andarna is kind of like seems hesitant, and then it's just like bond broken, and she goes. It's
Yeah,
very sudden.
yeah. In that moment I wasn't sure like she says I don't know how she starts and then there's a whistle and it's over, which I was like did she like try to do something and it did it unknowingly or it's possible he broke it. I'm also wondering how broken it really is. I don't know. I have lots of questions about this, which
Yeah.
not a lot of answers, but I don't have a strong feeling about what happened really, but I don't know. Do
Mine,
you have thoughts?
I think he broke it. Like I think he wanted Andarna to come, and he was like annoyed that she would be held back by this like violent human bond. Because also it's important to note none of the Irids have humans. Like none of them are bonded, you
Yeah.
know? So I think, and it seems like he's kind of like irritated and like annoyed or like views it as a hindrance to Andarna in some ways.
Mm.
Um,
Seems
so
like
my
not
guess
the
is,
most peaceful thing to do for an Irid, but
yeah, but that's my guess is
yeah.
that like he breaks it and then Andarna is like overwhelmed and just like goes with him because she does clearly want to go with him, but she also doesn't want to abandon Violet, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so that's my thought with that. I also am predicting that book 4 is gonna open with an explanation from Andarna, maybe. Like maybe we're gonna talk about Andarna, or we're gonna talk about the literal ending of the book and her talking with Imogen. But
It
yeah,
could be bringing Andarna immediately, or other prediction, we don't see Andarna till halfway through the book. That could be a possibility too. Who
maybe,
knows?
maybe, yeah,
Because
like
I
maybe
don't know. We don't really know where Andarna is at the very well. We have
we do. She's like camouflage watching
okay.
because she's making sure they don't burn her.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yep. Okay. And Darna leaves. Chapter 54. Violet has a breakdown. Um, yep. Yep. Straight up.
And we
Um,
have some serious sibling dynamics going on then.
oh, yeah. So interesting. Uh, we find out via sibling argument in the next room that Violet was brought to be dedicated to Dune by her dad because her dad thought she was broken, is how they phrase it. It took me a minute. I had to reread this section to wrap my head around exactly what happened. Here is what I am pretty sure happened, right? So, um, Violet's dad takes her to the Isle of the people who worship Dune and dedicates her because the idea was that if you had like a weaker or like a child that didn't have like a good start or had some disadvantages, like having a god as a patron would help strengthen them and like be like a safety net in some ways, which yeah, interesting like classic mythology and a lot of like Greek Roman mythology vibes. Anyways, so her dad, because of like her chronic illness stuff, viewed her as like weaker and like she wasn't going to be able to survive. So he brought her to be dedicated to Dune. Um, but then they stopped it mid progress because the high priestess was like, she still has like a path to choose. And then we get into the all the things about like the high priestess tells her dad that the person or that like who has her heart is going to make the wrong choice for the right reason and turn to like the darkness. And they think that's maybe about Violet. It is actually about Xaden. Um, yeah. So, anyways, that was my interpretation of all that.
I all of a sudden, just as we were talking about that, I have a it right here about that the heart that beat for you would do the wrong
Mm-hmm.
thing for the right reason, reach for unspeakable power and turn dark, which just made me think back to when Lilith wrote that letter to Asher saying about Violet's horrible taste in men, and if she was thinking about this like moment, because
Oh,
or if they all assumed that it was Violet. I don't know.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this is really interesting. Violet, it kind of sends her in a crisis that she doesn't really deal with, which makes sense because she has other crisis, multiple other crises going on. But where she realizes she doesn't really know her parents, we very much get the idea like Violet has put her dad kind of on a pedestal, and like her dad loved and accepted her. Her mom was super hard on her, didn't believe in her, and thought she was like weaker. It's kind of the general vibes that we've gotten through the series. And we slowly like trickle out a little more information that Violet's mom really did love her. But we're kind of led to believe she's Loki, the bad guy at the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is such a like world shifting to be like her dad was actually the one who viewed her as like too weak. And maybe that's even why he started training her to be a scribe, because, you know, her mom always made the comment of like Sorengales are always in the writer's quadrant. So maybe it was like even that, like he just thought she was too weak and convinced her mom or something. But then like when her mom actually talks about it, her mom is the one who's like, Violet endures more pain than anyone else. Like if anyone deserves to be a writer and like can handle it, it's Violet. Like, so actually I think her mom is just like very like cold and guarded, but actually like from the beginning has had less doubts about Violet, which is really interesting. Uh, Again, this is not overtly said, but I think we can kind of intuit some of this. And that's my interpretation. So, yeah, I don't know. Very interesting. We love some family dynamics. That's the truth about Callie and Amy. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's all my notes for 54. Anything you
Well,
want to
I
add?
yeah, one big thing, at least I think it's big, but we don't really touch on again at the very end. Um, what is it that happens exactly? Um, Xaden cuts through Mira's shield because he says that she doesn't intend to tell anyone about him. And I just feel like that's significant. Like, we don't know much about cutting through people's shields, and especially Mira with I don't know. I feel like there's something significant about Xaden being able to cut through shields, but
Yeah. We do have a lot of like maybe foreshadowing in this book showing Xaden's powers are getting like stronger and stronger and stronger. And he's like able to like interpret more, pick up on intentions, pick up on literal thoughts. Like I
yeah.
do think that's gonna come up. At some point, who even knows when we're gonna see Xaden again?
Maybe
Probably
he
by
won't
book
even be in the next book. Maybe we'll have to wait like 5 years before we
He
see.
literally might not be in the next book. That's what's crazy. He literally could not. And that maybe is going to be the big twist she ends book 4 on is like, hello, Xaden. Blah.
Oh God, I really hope that doesn't happen, but it really could.
It could. That's what I'm saying. Like, that could be the
Oh
twist.
God, I feel like that's definitely gonna be it now. Oh no.
I'm
Oh
sad
man.
I just said that out loud. Yeah. Okay. Eek. So yeah. 55. Violet works on her rune game, has to deal with it differently that because she's using just Taryn's power now instead of Andarna's. I do think this is kind of interesting, but it doesn't really come up again. At least in this book, classic. Uh, we're getting to the section that's going to be a lot of things that are like, what does that mean? I don't know. We'll find out in a couple of years, I guess. Yeah, it will be fun to like re-listen to this podcast before the next book comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I'm going to do a reread then and read along with ourselves.
That's so funny. Oh, man.
We can have a meta podcast. Okay, no.
Right? We also have Violet talks more with Felix about splitting lightning bolts into two with good accuracy, and she gets to split it in up to three with some accuracy. So that's big. And then they get a note that the High Priestess of Dune owes them a favor. So, yep, again, a very important thing to Aric's plan. Slash, not his plan, just him seeing the future.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. 56. This is where I had more thoughts. We open with a dream again, and it's the first time that Violet then is like, oh, this isn't my dream. And then she can step outside and she's herself in Xaden's dream.
Mm-hmm.
But she's talking with the sage. She's interacting with the sage, all this stuff. Both of them are like not part of the dream and talking about things imminently happening. And it's just Xaden in the dream. So I just find this whole thing a very confusing first look at what being a dreamwalker means or looks like. I really feel like we have no idea, essentially.
Yeah.
That's just the truth of it. Yeah. Violet then is able to get herself out of the dream by stabbing herself and then wakes up Xaden in real life, which is not working in the dream world. And then we find out that Theophany has Mira, and she sent Garrick to like walk over and tell them. Walk is in use his like signet walking power. So yeah, crazy. From here on out, it is go, go, go. Go, go, go.
Yeah. This is now everything from here on is what I read today. That's where I ended last night. So
that's an intense place to end.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I either have to be done reading now or I'm going to finish this book. So I decided to stop since it was
yeah, this is where I was reading last night and Will said he's going to bed. And I was like, I just have 10 chapters. I'll just stay up and quick finish the book. Whoops. Stayed up a little later than anticipated. Anyways, it's fine. Yeah, also, I will just say there were so many fan theories that were like, Violet is going to lose a guardian every book, and this book it's Mira. People were like convinced. And so I was like, are they right? Are they going to kill Mira? Anyways, yes and no. That's the truth there. So, yeah. Okay, 57. They're planning what they're going to do. I think the most interesting thing here is that Brennan realizes that, one, this is the first thing. This is like the first real opportunity where we find out at the beginning of Iron Flame that essentially Brennan is like on Xaden's council because he's known for being like such a strategic battle planner. We find out that's a characteristic about him in Fourth Wing, but this is really the first time we're really seeing like his strategy at work. So I do think that's kind of like cool, even though it felt like kind of a like annoying stall with such a cliffhanger. But he points out that he thinks they are continuing to fail because Theophany and the Venin generally know that Violet always tries to save everybody. She wants to save Xaden. She wants to save the civilians. She wants to save her friends. She always wants to save everybody. And that's why they're able to basically beat them all these times. And I think that's like such a good point. And like, I was going to say, much more like realistic real world battle, obviously, because that's what this series is. uh but
Hyper
yeah,
realistic.
obviously the realism is a key part of the writing. Anyways, so I think that's really interesting, and Brennan makes her choose one objective: save Mira, like save the civilians, save Xaden or something like that. And she says kill Theophany. And then he's like, good, that's even better than the options I gave you. I think Violet does good with two of the three objectives. I think it's very clear that she is so focused and distraught about Mira's death and like Theophany killing Mira. She absolutely puts all the focus and priority on saving Mira and Teeny. But two of the three is pretty good. She honestly does a good job staying focused, even with like the Xaden nonsense and being blocked out, and with the civilians. So mostly good and understandable for the other part. Yeah. So, yeah. Chapter 58, they get there, and Garrick is going to go bring Jack Barlow, who they decide is probably the brother. Theophany says to bring Violet, and we think at first Bodhi, but actually she says, and did she say his brother, the brother? Either way.
Yeah.
Either way, brother, to be safe, they bring all three. They bring Bodhi, who maybe could be interpreted as Xaden's brother. They bring Violet's actual brother, and they bring Jack Barlow, the brother, being a Venin. So that's interesting. Bring all three. When they get there, Mira is very injured and Teeny is in chains and like very bloody and missing a bunch of scales. Super sad. This pisses off the dragons. Taryn is like, she's dying for this. This is so like messed up. Obviously, like they're upset about Mira too. But honestly, we very rarely see anyone being able to like control or injure dragons. Yeah. And it's mostly just human casualties. So I do think this is kind of a big moment in the series. We back to back have like dragons getting like pretty beat up by Venin. So yeah, that's interesting. Teeny being the worst. Yeah. The chapter ends with Theophany slitting Mira's throat. Insane. Actually, I just realized this is where I ended. This is where Will was like, I'm going to bed. And I was like, I'm continuing reading.
If I had ended here, I would be like, yeah, absolutely have to keep reading.
Yeah.
Because my immediate reaction when I saw that, I'm like, Brennan's there, right? He can save her, right? Like,
right. Yeah. Also, because I'm like 7 chapters.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Just how much was gonna happen though.
Yeah,
I get like 4 different people's perspectives. We got a lot of perspectives. There was a lot happening.
Yeah, we get Rhiannon, Xaden, Violet, Imogen. Yeah. So 4. Which is crazy because in the entire series, we've had 1 chapter not from Violet's POV up until this point. So
yeah, there wasn't any in Iron Flame, was there?
Yeah. Nope. Yeah, and just the one in Fourth Wing. So really crazy. Which apparently was added on later. the Xaden chapter was not originally in the like first publishing, I think is what I heard.
I'd be even more mad at the end if that chapter wasn't in there. I'd be like, what happened? Like,
Yeah,
I still am like, what happened? But not
I've
not
read
that,
them. I'm like,
yeah,
what
imagine
happened?
not having that Xaden chapter. That'd be crazy. Oof.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. I'm pretty sure that's what I read. I could be wrong though. Anyways, 59, because that ending was insane. Violet is obviously like desperate for Brennan to mend her. Brennan is trying, but Brennan is like going pale. He's like, I can't do it. I can't save her. Violet is like very insistent during this time that he has to. And I was like, this is going to be the end. Like, Brennan's going to end up killing himself because he's going to burn out from the pressure with Violet. Like, Taryn even is like telling Violet, like that Brennan is on the edge of burnout. Like, I don't know. I thought things were going to get real crazy. But lo and behold, who flies in? Frickin' Sloane with Dane chasing her because Auric has a message he has to give to Violet. So he said, Sloane, it's just nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but I thought it was possibly intentional that he sent Sloane. But
I guess because maybe he knew
yeah,
what was going to happen. Yeah, it could have been. In the moment, I didn't think that, but now I'm like,
yeah.
I guess that could have been.
Also feel like something is
Um,
definitely going to happen with Sloane and Dane for sure, if not already happening.
I don't know. That's so far down on my list of questions about either of them, frankly. Oh man. Um anyways, um it is a very like nice moment that we get with Sloane. In it's not a nice moment at all. It's so intense, but it's nice in the sense of like in the full circle nature of like Sloane has been so like kind of traumatized that she ended up killing Violet's mom, even though it was like willing, like her mom wanted her to, like that she has basically not practiced her signet at all. And so then this is like she's able to save Mira with her signet too. I don't know. I'm just hopeful that this will like turn her around to not just viewing herself as like evil. Because you kind of get the vibe in this section that she basically views herself as like Venom, basically, and then being like, no, you like have the power of life, not death. Yeah, so I think that's interesting. Now, I have some freaking thoughts in this. Um, Dane steps up and says he is one of the only people who doesn't have to use his signet today, so that she should take power from him and put it into Brennan, right? And when Sloane starts taking the power from Dane to move it, she makes a comment where she says Dane has too much power for his signet. What does that mean? What does that mean? We already have been so suspicious that Dane is hiding something, but like, I don't know, something's going on. Something's going on there.
Are you
Is that
still suspicious of Dane? I have so moved past that.
no, not that he's like bad or he's like the one who's going to turn or something. Although I have some things that come up later that I'm like, maybe this is what that's referring to. But I do think Dane is still lying about his signet. I think there's something else going on. I think it's like more powerful or deeper or something like that. Also, because now we found out basically every character in this book is lying about some part of their signet, at least 50%. So I just feel like, I don't know, I think maybe Dane has like a lot more intrinsic power and is just telling people it's when he touches them, or I think there's something else that she's like, you have more power than you should, you know?
Yeah, I
Maybe
honestly didn't even clock that. I'm trying to find where it says that to
it's
see.
like one line.
Yeah.
Um, we also, speaking of other one line things that are haunting my brain, we also get Violet makes a comment where she's like, there's no mark on Dane or Brennan after this.
Yeah. I
What's
had
that about?
bookmarked, I'm like, that seems significant, but I have no idea what it means. So, and then there's another one line in this chapter that got me that happened before all of this, where Xaden says to get the chest out of here to Garrick because Theophany wanted Jack dead. He obviously knows things they don't want us to know. So,
Mhm. Yeah, which does check because Theophany like tells them to bring Jack. They open the chest and then she immediately throws a dagger at him to try to kill him before
mhm.
she then has to like flee.
Which I
Uh
did not see coming. I didn't know why they were bringing Jack in, but didn't think it was going to be.
yeah, and to be like the rescue mission before was not to rescue him, it was to kill him in his cell, you know? Like
Yeah.
she didn't want him. She makes a comment earlier that she won't make the same mistakes as whatever his face is in my mind. It's Bernard. Uh, as Sage
Berwin.
Bernard. Berwin.
Yeah.
Bernard is so much better. Okay, Berwin, and like reveals so much to like his like student, you know? So that's my assumption is that like, yes, Jack knows a bunch. Like he revealed a bunch about like something about the Venom culture, something about who the higher up is they're trying to impress. There's a lot that we don't know. We basically know nothing, to be honest. So, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that happens. Apparently, I didn't even make a note about that. Um, Brennan is able to save Mira. Oh, now I have the note about then like Theophany tries to kill Jack and leaves. And then this is when Sloane gives the package to Violet from Auric. And the chapter ends with Bodhi saying he has a problem, which is classic. Like, you want to build like tension in a book, problem on problem on problem. That's like number one writing advice. And this just like is clichély that there are so many issues all of a sudden.
I was so mad that I'm like, why didn't you immediately open the thing that came from Arik? Like, you
Yeah,
knows you're in battle and is like, oh, she could take this now. No, it's obviously important.
yeah, I do think it's weird that Violet neither time is like even when he's like you have to protect Dune, that's how you save Tyrandor. She never is like what? What? Like Arik, tell me what
And
something.
you think she would
Like
question that more because, I mean, he's a first year, so she doesn't know what his power is, so it could be significant. And he's also the prince. Like, he probably has some type of intel somehow. Like, yeah.
I did not think that it was him seeing the future. Like I thought it was just some like he knew some additional conspiracy theory as the prince that he was
Yeah.
like informed about the land or it being tied to magic or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I didn't give much thought to like why he knew something was happening, but I'm like, he obviously knows something is going on. I also assumed it was related to him being a prince, but
Yeah. My mind immediately went to House of the Dragon, like the you pass on the one legend to the heir kind of thing. Anyways, you haven't watched House of the Dragon. Yeah. Yeah. It's a plot line. It's a plot line. So, yeah. I won't say more because I don't want to give spoilers away in House of the Dragon. Okay, so um yeah, it's nonsense. She doesn't even like open the package. She just puts it in her
Yeah,
pocket. I
she
don't
like notes that it was addressed to him, and she's like, "Why is he giving me his mail?" I'm like, "Are you
know, in
serious?"
the middle of a
Like,
battle.
Violet's supposed to be very smart, and there's a couple moments where I'm like, "How are you not getting this?" Like, it doesn't happen that often, but there's a couple times where I'm like, "Come on."
Also, like other people have been getting Violet's mail as addressed to them
Yeah,
for months.
yeah,
This is an established thing in this book.
yeah. That's true.
It's nonsense. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, chapter 60 um opens with Taryn. They eventually decide that Taryn is going to take Teeny while uh, she is wrapped in chains because then he can carry her and bring her into the wards because she's like unresponsive. So we've got that. I don't even remember what Bodhi's problem is. I feel like it's smaller than all the other problems.
No.
Whatever. Um, yeah.
Oh, it's
Okay.
just that they have to get Tiny off of the fields before Theophany comes, is what the problem is. So, yeah.
Okay. Resolved. Taryn takes her. Um, then Theophany does come, and the reason Bodhi is there is that he can counter like lightning wielding. I did not remember this. I could not tell you what Bodhi's power is, to be honest with you. Can't
I think
like.
we really haven't seen it much in action. I definitely remembered because when we learned, I was like, that's a really cool power. But it's something that I think Xaden just says, like in passing to Violet in Iron Flame. So,
Yeah. Anyways, but specifically, it counters lightning, is
it
what we
just
find
counters
out.
signets, is what it is. But
But it can't.
I don't get why he can't counter this signet, but like it is said earlier that he can counter other people's signets.
Okay. Because I get where then Violet is like, their magic is not like ours. It doesn't matter. Leave. But they make such a big deal about being like, she's not a lightning wielder. Leave, Bodhi. And he's like, no. And then it's like, well, their magic is different than ours. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't know how they came to that conclusion. I didn't
Yeah.
quite follow that.
I don't know. Either way, I think it's pretty proven that like signets don't work super well against the venom. At least, I guess most of what I'm thinking of maybe is just Zayden's dreams where they're not like effective against them because Violet's is, but a bunch of the other signets are not like effective against them. I don't know. There's a lot to flesh out. There's a lot to flesh out. We know Violet's signet works against them, so I guess that's something. Anyways, we find out that Theophany is not a lightning wielder. She's a storm wielder like Violet's mom. And that Violet's mom, her signet was like manifested as a counter against I almost said against Lilith, against Theophany,
Mhm.
which is so interesting. And that then Theophany has been like watching and she makes like a comment about like she assumed Mira would be the next to try to like take her on, not Violet. Anyways, so interesting.
Yeah.
Super, super interesting.
She also says to Violet something about, "Are you ready to tip the balance?" And then Violet's thinking about how two white lightning wielders, before she realizes that she's not a lightning wielder, um, on any side wouldn't just tip a balance, it would destroy it. And then she also says the same as shadows, which I feel like is a little foreshadowing about them trying to get Lynx to become Venom. I feel like
Mm.
it's gonna be a thing. So
Yeah, especially depending on where this all ends with Xaden, which again,
mhm.
I don't think we're gonna know till book 5. So there's that. At least where it ends with Xaden, I don't think we're gonna know till book 5. Anyways, yeah. So there's that. Then finally, Bodhi is like determined. He's gonna like stay and fight. And I freaking love that his dragon is like, no, you dummy, and just picks him up and leaves. I love that. I love that.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Um, and then I also think it's interesting. This is just a side note, even though it comes up later, that then it was supposed to be he was supposed to leave and go back to the protection of the wards, and because he's the next in line if Xaden dies, and then like later they see him again fighting, and Violet asks about it, and Taryn says we all make our own choices. But I just kind of like that like his dragon is um like pulls him from this battle in self-preservation, but still is with him and respects, like he doesn't bring him to the wards. They just fight somewhere else where he's actually gonna, like, it's almost like his dragon being like, you literally can't do anything in this situation. Let's go somewhere where we actually will make a difference, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I feel like it makes more sense. Do you remember what color Bodhi's dragon is? Is it green?
I do not remember. Oh, yep, green. It says right
Okay.
here. His green wings beat in a giant sweep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that makes sense too, with them being like the most like logic based and rational of than him being like, this does not make sense for you to be here.
Yeah.
We need to go be like pragmatic and fight somewhere where we're actually going to make a difference. So yeah. Um okay, the chapter ends with some interesting wording about like uh I'm not the most powerful wielder, she is. And I wrote, who is the she?
I wrote who is she referring to so many times in this section because some of the dreams
Yeah,
I had questions about that, and then this I was questioning. I'm like, is she talking about Theophany? Who is she talking about?
yeah.
I don't know.
I
I
I
think
still
it's about Theophany saying that Theophany's more powerful than her, but I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, I think it is about this in this context. And then other times I thought they were maybe talking about Andarna, but then it turned out it's Xaden's dream, so then it was Violet. There was a lot of like, bring her to us. We need her. She's the most
The
powerful.
ones that I think are Xaden's dream, I also was thinking that it was potentially Andarna until we realized that they were Xaden's dream, and in which case I think they're talking about Violet, bringing Violet to them. So,
Yeah, that's what I think also.
yeah.
Um,
But then
yeah,
this cuts to the next chapter is Rhiannon's perspective, so I'm like, is it talking about Rhiannon? Like,
I know. I also thought that. And then I went back, reread that section, and then jumped in and I was like, I don't think so, but that's kind of how they how
yeah,
they make it seem.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I think she's talking about Theophany.
yeah. I think so too. I
Theophany.
did lose it this next chapter when they changed perspectives because the only time we have had the changed perspective was when it was Xaden and it was the last chapter. I'm like, is that all we get of Violet's perspective? I was really worried.
Yeah, yeah. Which no, we're gonna add a bunch more questions.
Yeah.
No, it would have been more annoying for it to end here. Like, I'm glad we get a little more resolve, even though it opens a bunch of new questions. Literally, the amount of questions about where the series is going in the next 5 chapters is insane.
hmm
Insane.
hmm
Um, okay. Tell me, how did you feel about this back and forth between like A different POV, Violet, different POV, Violet, different POV, Violet.
I, like I said, was freaking out, worried that we weren't gonna get Violet's perspective, but when I realized we were, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with this. I did think that this section with Brianna was gonna be somehow related to what was happening with Violet. I thought it was like gonna be that all of a sudden her squad was gonna be there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so uh yeah, I was expecting it to relate more. And I liked getting some of the other perspectives. Yeah, I'll say more when we get to like Imogens, but
Yeah,
um yeah. I didn't have a lot of notes for Rhiannon. Actually, I didn't really have any notes for Rhiannon's chapter except for that I was worried we weren't going to hear from Violet again.
yeah. I don't have a lot either, just that they're like holding the past. I think it's kind of a, I was like, honestly, I was kind of annoyed when I was reading the book because I thought we had like 6 chapters to resolve things with Violet, but it turned out we had like 2 more.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, she is on the field by herself with Theophany. We literally, is there literally 2 more chapters that
yeah.
we, yeah, we have 2 chapters with her
Well,
perspective. One of
there's three.
3.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But still, and one of them only kind of counts because her memory is wiped and she doesn't know what has happened. So if we think of like stories, like chapters that are really moving the plot that we thought was happening ahead, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just not that much from Violet's perspective. So that was a little annoying. Here's the pros, which I will say, um, one, I thought this was a very smart way to not have to then start the next book with like a backtrack of everything that happened in the city and everything that happened in this, because everyone is so divided. Like, this is the first time Violet's only focused on the one thing. So this was a way to like catch us up, at least in the Rebecca Yarros, like, you get what you get kind of like bare bones details to figure out what was happening in all these other places. So I did think that was creative. And I really liked seeing everyone's relationship and getting to hear their dialogue with the dragons and the different color dragons, because everyone had a different color dragon. I really liked. And most of what the interactions we have gotten to see, besides Taryn and Andarna, have been from Sigale, who I feel like is not even a classic blue, because she's like known for just doing whatever she wants and being vicious. Like, she's kind of just an extension of like a more ruthless version of Taryn in some ways. Yeah, so I really liked that. But yeah, it's just so much. It's so much. It's adding a lot more details.
no, based on what you say, I definitely do like it for those reasons. Because, like, the first point you made about how at the beginning of the next book we need like a little synopsis of what happened from the other people's perspective. I didn't think about it that way, but if I didn't have the perspective of those people, I'd be like, well, what were they doing this whole time? There's probably a bunch we don't know, and then I would be disappointed in the next book when it's like, oh, this is pretty straightforward what happened. I mean, other
Yeah.
than people dying and whatnot. And I do like hearing the different like relationships that people have. And I really like when there's multiple POVs in a book because I just like hearing from like a different person's perspective because you get one view of them when you hear from like Violet's perspective all the time, and I liked seeing Rhiannon and Imogens and yeah. So
Yeah, I like different POVs or multiple POVs when the different characters are like different places doing different things. I don't I rarely enjoy POVs that are just directly one person's perspective, the same scene from another person's perspective. It just takes me out of the story too much. My ADHD can't deal, as we learned. um,
Twilight tandem read.
yeah. And then I don't always love if it's all these characters together and they're all doing the same thing and it switches POVs. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But I really like POVs like in this case scenario. Or like I really enjoyed the tandem read of in the Throne of Glass series. I like Game of Thrones. Like that idea where like the characters have like distinctly different things happening and we jump around in the story. I do like. So yeah. Yeah. So mostly I just my only comment in here is really liking Rhiannon and her dragon. I also think it's interesting. The relationship is very distinct from Taryn and Violet and from Imogen and her dragon later, but specifically because Rhiannon is taking the lead a lot. Like her dragon is kind of making fun of her, but is waiting for like Rhiannon to give direction on what they should do and what maneuvers. Taryn would never. Taryn tells all the dragons. He doesn't even tell Violet. He says, "Hold on." Like, so I did think that was interesting to see like the leadership dynamics there. It also maybe makes more sense because like Rhiannon's dragon is more of a like mid-ranking dragon, and Rhiannon has been given a place of authority. So maybe you just default to like who has more authority. Would kind of make sense. But yeah, where obviously like Taryn has like very high authority with the dragons, like maybe number 2 in charge, and we have no interactions between him and Coda. And Violet's like a baby. So, you know, there's that. Anyways, 62. Let's jump back to Violet and Theophany. Theophany. I keep changing how I'm saying it. Sorry, everyone, if that's annoying to listen to. Either way, Violet does a good job avoiding Theophany and is like dashing around when she's like starting to lose patience. And then Sigale comes and gets her. I liked that. I thought it was kind of cute. I did think maybe that's where it was going to go. But
yeah, I didn't know how it was gonna go if literally no one else was there and Taryn wasn't there. And yeah, wouldn't have gone well, I don't think. But
no, for sure not. She was like kind of out of options. But I did think that Xaden was going to like send Sigale to get her.
It's also
and like,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And just like I thought Xaden reasonably could convince her also because like if Xaden dies, especially as a Venin, it's maybe not even a hindrance to Sigale at this point. Like I think she would be upset, but I don't think she'd die, you know? Where like Taryn is very connected to Violet. There's a very good chance that he would die. Mm-hmm. So I just think like self-preservation, like you can make that argument, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which also just in regards to that, I'm all of a sudden I was talking about how I was worried about how people might come after Violet, but now I'm rethinking that because if Violet died, presumably Taryn would die and then Sigale would die. But Jack lived even though his dragon was killed. So that wouldn't even necessarily kill Xaden. So I'm retracting what I said earlier. Maybe. Yep. I don't know.
Yep.
The thing I was going to say before that was that towards the beginning of this chapter, Violet says to Theophany that she's the only white lightning wielder that she has to prove herself now. Do you have thoughts about who she is trying to prove herself to?
I don't know, but I'm worried he's going to be like, I'm guessing in the classic, like in a 5-book structure, right? I was saying I was really nervous for this book because book 3 is like, we have to like tear all this down and start building the foundation for like the ultimate big bad that we're going to end with. And so I think that's what it's leaning towards. Um, yeah, so that's my guess is I think that's going to be the series climax is having to deal with whoever is above that.
Yeah.
And my guess is like the next book we're going to learn a lot about the Irids, like some lore culture from Andarna, and then we're going to get some more background in the Venin. And then yeah, but maybe I think I might be right that like she's not going to see Zayden until the end of the next book. I think that's a good guess.
Yeah. I also did just see a TikTok literally while we were taking a break. I looked and saw a TikTok that was someone talking about an interview that there was with Rebecca Yarros, and apparently the dream walking has only like been delved into like 10% of what that power actually is. So that'll be interesting to see what
Yeah.
the other 90% is, and I'm sure will come up. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I my kind of guess is like she has set up a lot of things for a lot more lore, and then we're like tip of the iceberg with the Irids, with the Venin, with like we've just set up enough to have us really gripped with dreamwalking, like so I think we're gonna like have sprinkles of that throughout Violet learning, Violet like ruling now
yeah.
being a duchess. And yeah, and then the climax is gonna be whoever Theophanie's like boss person is that she's trying to like impress, like her master. I think that's who they're gonna have to like defeat in the end. But that was a lot. What do you think? Who do you
Oh, I
think it
had no idea. I was asking because I truly have no, I mean, kind of what you said, but like, I, yeah, who that could
is?
be? No clue.
Yeah, I think it's a character we don't know yet. I definitely don't think it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, that's the twist, is that that's the person who's been super high up in the Besgaeth military. I don't think it's that. I think that's a
yeah,
totally new character we just don't even know. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my thought. Or it's Takaris. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think
That
that.
would be crazy. That would be
So
so
unhinged.
crazy. Can you imagine? Or Holden. It's Holden.
It's nah, he's too dumb. Couldn't be him. Oh man. Okay. Anyways, Sigale tosses Violet up. Taryn catches Violet. They go off and see that there are hundreds of wyvern.
Vern.
Wyvern. Wyvern?
It's
Just does not.
exactly how it's spelled.
I think many of the pronunciations I have done, one could argue, is how it's spelled in English. Anyways, that's not the point. Anyways, there's so many of them. Violet is like superpower badass. Taryn's so proud of her. She's like, finally, Car's lessons might actually be impactful. And she's just shooting out like 10 bolts, 6 bolts, 12, but like boom, 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 boom. Anyways, pretty dramatic. It's shocking that this is like not even the climactic battle. This is just a little bonus battle on their way. Like that's crazy. I'm just gonna say it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so we have that, and then Violet and Taryn head into a tornado slash around a tornado slash Theophany has made a tornado, and they're heading into the storm.
Which I am so mad that I did not clock earlier about the tornado and Theophany because when we saw that first tornado, I was questioning if it was Garrick because we didn't know what Garrick's power was at that point in time. And I'm so mad I didn't go back and question when we learned it wasn't Garrick about who it was. Ugh.
Mm, that's true. I do think that's probably the most obvious giveaway
Yeah.
that
Because it
the
was just a
storm.
tornado out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah. And they always talk about her traveling in like storms and stuff
mhm.
like that, you know? So,
I
yeah,
bet there's some people out there who got it before it was stated.
probably,
But
probably. We're a relatable fantasy podcast where I'm clearly just making up whatever name my brain thinks. I'm saying different ones every time. We're guessing
and
as we
I just
go.
have so many theories that some of them turn out to be right, but a lot of them are wrong.
Yeah, we're the approachable fantasy podcast. If you want the people who are like guessing everything correct and jumping ahead and coming up with whatever, there's other podcasts for you. We're like the relatable. You don't have any other friends to talk to about this. Oh man. Um, okay, let's jump into Imogen's perspective. So that's chapter 63 for those following along. Um, yeah. So uh again, the majority of my chapter notes are just around the interactions with Imogen, her dragon. Really love that. This also made me be like, nah, all oranges are not evil. That theory is dumb. We already kind of decided that, but I think this is such a good representation of like just she's chaotic. She doesn't
Yeah.
listen to Imogen. She's like fine if Imogen dies half the time. Not actually, but kind of. Like she's just like utter chaos, doesn't communicate with Imogen, is just running, changing her mind about what she wants. So I think that's like a good representation because we've really, most of the personality we've seen from oranges have been from like scary oranges out to kill them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was like a fun look, particularly. I thought even more so than Rhiannon. But yeah. Okay, then we get into some deeper moments with Imogen's character, which I really liked, but I was just straight up crying. Even though we literally barely knew about Imogen and Quinn's friendship before this, I was straight up crying. I was
I
so sad.
I was also crying, and I made a note specifically around this, and this is what I was referring to earlier that I wanted to talk about when we got to Imogen's chapter, is the fact that we got this from her perspective made it so much more emotional. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I did not have any real attachment to Quinn. We don't get a ton of her, but like, so if we had heard about it from Violet's perspective, would not that I wouldn't have cared, but would not have cared as much for sure, versus getting this from her perspective was almost cruel. I just, oh, it was
Yeah.
so sad. So
Because
sad.
I think from Violet's perspective, it would have felt like okay, we're killing people off, but only kind of like B tier characters. Like we didn't kill any tier
Yeah,
characters in this
this
book, you
yeah, this
know?
is something else that I kind of have questions about because I feel like I have seen an interview with Rebecca Yarros where she said she wasn't afraid to kill off her main characters, and I'm like, she hasn't done that yet. Like the closest we got was Liam, and he really wasn't a main character. Like he was important to the story, but as was Quinn in some regards. But
Yeah, we definitely get more attachment with Liam, but again, he doesn't even show up really until halfway through the book.
yeah,
You know, and it's as much about Violet grappling with like causing death and being at fault for someone she cared about. Like that's as impactful as his actual death, like because of our relationship or connection to Liam. um so yeah, I mean clearly she's fine with like Zayden obviously is kind of going dark more overtly, and like I think she's willing to like not have all her characters be heroes or like the cliche good guys. Um, but I, okay, this sounds bad, but I felt very mixed about them saving Mira. I would have been annoyed if literal TikTok theories that had like nothing to go on except for vibes of the book, correctly guessed the main death of this book and that Mira was dead, would have been annoying to me. Even though there's nothing in the previous books that would let you believe that. It's literally people just put out that because they're like, Rebecca Yarros will kill anyone. Right? So in that way, I'm glad that those people were like wrong, because that's such a dumb theory to like spoil an actual huge emotional event in a book. It's not like, oh, you were so clever to think that, and like now, whoa, like it just feels different to me. But I also was kind of like, in a weird way, also disappointed they saved Mira. I just feel like, yeah, I think her character is interesting. They've built up a ton that like Mira is the only person she should trust. So I think there's like more to their relationship that should come. So I think it's good overall. But I just kind of, I don't know. I just don't like the cliche of like we just use magic to like fix the problems. Like I want some more real stakes, and that's something I generally like more about Fourth Wing than some other series, is that the stakes are like real, and it felt like kind of a like they were less real, like
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but also like that's typically the kind of thing that I take issues with in book. But this one I don't as much because like, I said like, oh, Brennan is there and he can save her, right? And he tries to, but he can't. And then Sloane comes, which normally I'd be annoyed with, but I think there's a possibility that Sloane was intentionally sent there.
hmm.
So for me, for that reason, I'm okay with it. But I also definitely get your perspective and where you're coming from. And also, like, this sounds bad, but I'm a little disappointed that a more main character wasn't killed off. Just because, and like, obviously, I don't want that to happen, but I feel like it'd be more realistic if it did. Because, like, since the very beginning, I mean, chapter one of Fourth Wing, someone dies. And then as they get put in there, I remember making a note, like, them talking about how many people die. And I was like, this is back when we were on Team Dane. So I was like, statistically, Dane or Violet, one of them is going to die before the end of the first year, because that's like the statistic they have is like half the people die. And considering that, we haven't had barely any main character deaths.
Yeah,
Arguably any, depending what you quantify as a main character. But
I mean, their whole thing is year after year, they've been like Iron Squad. They've lost the least amount of people, which
yeah,
means the people we're interacting with are like the least, like they've died less than everyone else.
yeah,
I will say, I think you can make the argument like Violet's supposed to be the strongest. Signet power, Xaden is very strong. Like some of them, Imogen's a very good fighter. So it makes sense like some of them are just better than other people. But I think we don't see that with Sawyer. We don't see that with Riddick. There's like characters that we still are connected to that it would make more sense that they were dead.
yeah. And I feel like I'm, a very practical data focused person. I'm like, what are the odds of three siblings all surviving? I feel like it's pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah, true. They
So,
did lose both their parents. And there's the whole powerful riders are supposed to marry other powerful riders to produce powerful riders thing, and their mom is super powerful. I don't know. There's things. To not get on too far of a tangent, I will say the thing that annoys me the most, that I really dislike, is when in fantasy somebody is dying or like very injured, and then it's like suddenly there's new magic that we're going to use to explain this away. That is
mhm.
the thing I really like. It's hard for me to get over. I really like it, like will drop a star for me personally in a book. I was going to talk about a specific series that drives me crazy with this, but we won't even, because I
I
know you
also
have.
thought of a specific series, but
Oh, now I want to know which one you thought of.
we'll talk about it later.
Okay. Anyways, And she didn't do that. That's not what happens here. They're not even like both these powers are established last book. It's not even things that conveniently she wrote in and foreshadowed in this book, knowing this problem would come. Like these were already established. These people had these powers. So I feel more okay with it. I think I'm just like, I'm at where you are, where I'm like, it feels weird that we honestly had pretty few people die in this book comparatively for like the level of stakes. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk more about where Zayden's at because I do think that's a factor, but we're going to talk about that in a second. All that to say, Quinn's death was super sad. That's what got us going on all this. I think it was super impactful to have it from Imogen's perspective, and we skipped over, but we also find out Imogen also has a second signet that she's been hiding, where she's able to like turn things into stone, maybe, and run through fire. We know because she turns Dane's shield into stone, and then they run through the dragon.
Yeah, you know what? I was totally confusing her and Quinn's power because I thought she like somehow became stone, but yeah, that was Quinn who I didn't even realize. Oh, anyway, yep, that's significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Quinn's is like projecting.
Yeah, I thought it was some extension of that kind of
That,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, Imogen's is mind erasing. So which comes up. Okay, keep on keeping on. Chapter 64, my first note. What the F even just happened? Like, you guys know I have been like reading the whole chapter and then making notes about the summary, unless there's like small things along the way that I think I'll forget in the bigger summary. And I literally got done reading this chapter, and it took me like several minutes to even put together everything that freaking happens in the like 6 pages that this chapter is. It's so short and so insane.
That's really funny that you say that's your first note because that is my last note of this chapter, like, because I do them as I go. And my last note is verbatim, what the fuck just happened?
That's so funny.
But I also want to get your perspective because this once again I'm asking this question because I don't know, not because I have some answer I want to talk about. The quote at the beginning, which is the correspondence from the High Priestess to Auric, says, "A gift from one servant of Dune to another. I must warn you, only those touched by the god should wield their wrath. I will pray to her that she need not use it to avoid reacquainting herself with the other who curries her favor. Her path is still not set." Who do you think is the other that curries her favor?
I think it's Violet.
But it's talking about Violet, isn't it? Because it's saying, "I will pray to her," meaning Dune, "that she will not need to use it to avoid reacquainting herself." Oh, maybe herself is referring to Dune. I thought herself was referring to Violet, which is
Yeah.
why I read that so many times trying to understand.
Yeah. I
That
do
makes
think
more sense.
the wording is confusing because they're using her and she once again,
Yeah.
and they're talking about different people in like 4 sentences. So initially, her and she, I think, is Violet or like the chosen one or whatever they're saying. And then herself is talking about Dune. And then it's back to talking about Violet.
That makes much more sense. I
Yeah.
was thinking herself was talking about Violet, and I'm like, who curries her favor? What are they talking about? Okay.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
think
think,
about it that way.
yeah. I also feel like I, as much as I've been trying to keep track of the gods, I have not kept track of their genders, and I do feel like that has been an issue. It is one of the things I heard as a complaint with this book is that all of a sudden people are referred to by their last names and like the genders of the gods a lot, which people are like, it's just harder to keep track of,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talking about Llewellyn because Llewellyn is a place and a person.
Oh, yeah, that's nonsense. And he's like the head. Yeah, no,
Well,
nonsense.
the reason is he's the Duke of Llewellyn, which sometimes you refer to a person based on where they're from, like that's a thing. But anyway, we'll not go there. But I have no idea what his real name is, but
They only call him Llewellyn.
yeah.
Maybe, do you think that's a military thing? I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes when I don't understand the verbiage, I have looked it up specifically with Rebecca Yarros, and it has been like a specific way people talk about rank or military things that's like common vernacular in that community, which again makes sense because that's like her real community she grew up with and is married in. So, yeah. Anyways, could be. Maybe it's not. Either way, didn't catch that. I did have a moment that I was pretty confused about it, but it didn't even make the notes because friggin' there's too much to talk about besides that. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's was my interpretation. Was the note was talking about Violet
That makes
and
sense.
Dune not having her wrath. Okay. Violet fights Theophany. The dagger. Okay, I thought this was like a pretty cool idea. Actually, I was describing the ending of the book to Will today. Like this morning, once he was finally awake and I could talk to him. Will is my husband, if you don't remember, dear listeners. And I was describing this specific thing, and he was like, "Whoa, that's such a cool like idea." And I do kind of like it. It's a nice way to like have a new magic thing that's not just Violet gets new power. Now she can kill Theophany, you know, but to be like, because they have talked about like Theophany knows all this stuff about them and they don't know anything about her. And so I like that again, it's like Violet's ability to research that saves the day, kind of like this back knowledge, and that she would know about these priestesses. It also, there's something freaking there. There's still something about like that both of them would be dedicated or like touched by Dune or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's still something else in my mind. I don't think we're done with the Temple of Dune and the priestesses of Dune. But yeah. So essentially there's a shard of marble from the temple. And one of the things is that Theophany, because she is like a rejected priestess, can never go inside the temple again or it will kill her. So Violet takes a piece of the temple, also clever wordplay, and puts it inside her, like, which is what kills her.
Yeah.
Anyways, I thought, yeah, I don't know. I thought this was pretty clever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I couldn't predict that coming for sure. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it's the classic. My favorite thing that a book can do is you don't predict it, you don't predict the twist, but when you hear the twist, you're like, oh, we learned enough about this that if I reread the book, I would be like, oh my gosh, and re-highlighting parts I didn't notice before.
I know I already want to do a reread because I feel like there is so much to catch in all the books that I would be like, there's that, which we got a little bit of because you had obviously read the first two books before, so I think
Yeah,
it'd be fun to do.
yeah,
But probably
yeah,
won't happen for a while.
right.
Probably wait till the next book comes out.
Yeah. The reread was very satisfying. I thought it was a satisfying series to reread, even though it was just a year ago that I read them. So yeah. Yeah. So that happens. We find out Arik is a precog. That's where my real note is. I just mixed it all up before. Okay, and then Andarna shows up. Crazy. Violet stabs Theophany in the heart. Violet blacks out slash burns out.
What the fuck?
In many ways, the end of the story for Violet. Like, this is kind of where the book ends as far as like the plot trajectory, what we're getting, like, crazy. And the idea that actually this is where Violet stops having memory and then the actual ending of the book is crazier than this is insane. I just need to say, yeah, I legitimately, where I'm like, I could not have talked about this book after I finished it because what even is this? It's as much what even is this as it could possibly be without you just being like, this is idiotic, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it is right at the line of how many ridiculous twists you could throw in 3 chapters without it feeling like so forced, which, I don't know, talent, but crazy. Okay, I keep jumping ahead. Sorry about that. Anything else you want to add from chapter 64? Otherwise, let's jump into Zayden's perspective in 65.
No, I'm ready to talk about 65 because 65 is where I was like, I am so confused. Did I miss something major? And this is where I had to look up on TikTok to be like, are we supposed to know who Berwin is? I was so confused about who Berwin was and all the things being said about him. I'm
Yeah,
still less confused, but still confused.
yeah. Okay, I did know who Berwin was. I did not until this chapter make the connection he was the sage, which you were not sold that that's for sure who he is. So maybe not. Maybe that was my interpretation.
Well, no, I
Um,
know. Yeah, he's the sage for sure.
oh, okay. The like one in the dreams.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Same page. I had not made that connection yet. And I didn't realize that Zayden, I thought this entire time Theophany was trying to get Violet and Zayden to come be under her. And I knew who Berwin was, or Bernard, as I've affectionately named him. I knew who he was because the Theophany fantasy names, they kill me. I love fantasy, but I sound like such an idiot when I talk about it. Okay. Uh, so because Theophany keeps saying how much better it will be for Violet to come to her and not now Bernwin. I just, okay, great. I literally was going to say Bernard. Um, anyways, how much I messed myself up so much. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone listening. Yeah, so I knew that he was like Theophany's rival. I did not make the connection that Zayden at this point has already, like, this entire time, he's been under Berwin. Thank you.
For the people who are just listening to the audio, I'm just nodding my head, shaking my head.
Every time I say like any name, but particularly in this section, it's also concerning to me that like you say it and I'm like, that's how you say it. And you're like, yes. And then I say it 20 seconds later and I'm like, did I say it right? And you're like,
Nope.
no. That's so funny to me. Anyways, it could be a thing about where my brain is currently at. Could be how I am generally. Who knows? Um, but anyways, wow, we've spent so much time talking about me messing up these names. I'm so sorry, everyone.
I have to say, you have spent so much time.
I know, not we. Yeah, Amy has no judgment and or some judgment that she keeps inside and is just nice about it. I externally process all of it on the internet. Cute for V. Okay.
Berwin.
I knew who he was. I didn't know Zayden like was under him, however.
Okay, when I say that I was questioning who he was, I meant in regards to he's talking about, he says, like, how could he do this, choose this after watching me stumble and fall over the last 5 months? Like, it seems like Berwin is someone other than just Berwin, like it's someone
No,
who was close. What?
that's someone else. That's someone else. That's the new student that Berwin has taken. Here, okay, I'm just going to say who I think is there in Zayden's perspective. I think Zayden is
Oh,
there.
yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yep, I totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have a million questions about
Yeah.
who he is.
Yeah,
We
that's what I meant.
know who the he is for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't even, whatever. Guys, Sigil is captured. Zayden loses it. There's more there. Okay, but let's start. In this scene that Zayden is in, the insanity of like it opens Sigil already captured. She's in a net. Also, uh there is an unconscious dragon for the new brother. There's the new brother. There's Berwin. There's Panchek and Panchek's dragon. Maybe. I think Panchek's dragon is also in a net.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 6 characters. We knew maybe 2 of them were going to be together. Maybe. And that is Zayden and Sigale. So this is an insane scene to be dropped into. Yeah. Then we have a lot of conversation about the he. Who is Zayden's new brother that has just been turned? Here's what we know. His dragon is unconscious. We know that Berwin takes like a green knife, stabs that dragon and kills it. So whoever's dragon it is just died.
Well, I thought the dragon was Panchek's. Do we not know that for sure? Maybe we don't.
I thought no, because Panchek didn't die, and Panchek's not Venom, as far as we know. But maybe he is. Panchek could be Venom. That's
Well,
not like
yeah, because Panchek says the thing which I'm also curious about this. Panchek says, I'm the only one who can give you access to your son, which he says to Berwin, which I'm like, who the heck is Berwin's son? And
oh,
Berwin says, I have another, and then he stabs the dragon. I think that he's stabbing the dragon to kill Panchek. That was my understanding, at least.
okay, that could be. That could be. And then the other person's dragon is also in a net. So he has netted his
Is
two.
there multiple dragons?
I
Because
thought
that
there
one
was.
is in a net. That one is in a net, the one that he stabs.
Oh, okay. I thought there was Sigale and other dragon in net, and one dragon
Oh,
unconscious on the
yeah,
ground.
maybe you're right. I don't know. There's a lot.
Okay, we won't go into that now because
Okay.
we're uncertain. We're uncertain. I'll maybe reread the chapter later, but for now, it's not. It's not as important. So we know the he is someone who knew Zayden, has seen him struggling with being Venom, because Zayden is like incredulous why he would choose that. He says, after seeing me like struggle,
Yeah.
which makes me think it's someone who's known for longer, which is a very small list.
Yeah.
I'm
I
curious.
saw a theory and I
I
think it's pretty solid.
okay. Okay, tell me the theory. Oh,
I also did not watch the whole thing, and before we started recording, I had finished this half an hour ago, so these are not fleshed out thoughts. But from what I saw,
yeah,
I thought it seemed solid that it was Bodhi.
yeah. But
Yeah,
I think it's one of 3 people, and I think Bodhi is one of the people. I think it is.
yeah.
I
Who are
think
the
it
other
is.
two?
I think it's either Bodhi, Garrick, or Dane.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah. Then there was people saying Naol, and I'm like, that literally makes no sense. Because Naolan, yeah, I don't think it's Naolan, but people were
Yeah,
guessing. Because
yeah,
Naolan hasn't seen him the last 5 months, unless we're completely missing something. But
yeah.
yeah.
No. Yeah. Do you think? Are you thinking Naolan? Like when you asked earlier to be like, who do you think that person is? Do you think it's Naolan?
I don't know. I definitely this
the
confused.
person
And
above
I
them.
totally missed about how many people there were, so I was confused, but I was questioning about Naolin's ties. I still feel like there's something up with Naolin, but
Yeah, for sure. We've gotten
um,
zero more answers about him. It's very suspicious.
yeah.
And we got more comments about Taryn refusing to talk about him in this one, and Taryn's angst towards Zayden. Anyways, I just think Naolin is Venom for sure.
Yeah.
For
But then
sure.
I'm also really curious about what the deal is with Berwin because of Panchek saying, I'm the only one who can give you access to your son. And he says, I have another. Like, what is that about?
Yeah. At first, I thought he meant his literal son. And then when he said, I have another, I thought he meant the like he just made another Venom, as in whoever the he is.
But who do
So
you
I
think Panchek is talking about as his son?
I don't know.
Yeah. I
So
think
I
it might be a literal son, but I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It could be a literal son. The I have another, and then being like there's this new person. It could be like metaphorical, like how we're talking about brother. It
Yeah.
could not be that. It honestly, it could be Zayden, like he's the only one who can give him access to Zayden, but that's like not as strong because clearly like he got Zayden there himself. So I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think okay. So here's my reasons. I think Garrick. I wouldn't have thought, except for he's one of like the two male characters who knew earlier, and then he's missing at the end of the book. They don't know where he is, and Imogen is like seemingly pretty pissed. So it could be like something there that like she knows what happened, maybe which would point more to Garrick, although it could be Bodhi also, because she also like has a lot of feelings about wanting to keep that family on the throne.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like it's Bodhi because of how it all ends, which obviously we're about to get to. But
Yeah.
like the fact that she ends up becoming like the ruler when throughout this book so many times Xaden was like prepping Bodhi. Like, why would he have done all that just to make Violet the ruler if there was some reason that Bodhi couldn't be, you know?
Yeah. I do think Bodhi so overtly doesn't want that. And he also is there is a lot of foreshadowing of him telling Violet also, not as much as Bodhi for sure, but of telling like asking Violet to take care of his city when he's gone, take care of his people, you know. So I don't know. I think Bodhi is a very solid guess.
Yeah.
My only reason that Dane is on the list, Dane is a less strong guess, I think, because he didn't know most of this time, slash, does he know at all that Zayden is Venom?
It's not directly said, but I was questioning it when there was that whole thing back when Xaden like kind of went at Riddick and it makes note of Dane like noticing something was off.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Okay, but my reason for thinking that is Sloane specifically saying like you have more power than you should. I think that could be a hidden signet. I think that could be like maybe he's Venom or like something like
yeah,
that. I don't
there's
know.
also in Imogen's chapter, she says something about that she guesses like Atos is breaking all of the rules now
Yeah.
because Kath
Uh-huh.
is launching into different airspace. So, which I had a question about what that was about, and we didn't really get anything. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think all of those are possible. I feel like Bodhi, for whatever reason, I feel like, but I could change my thoughts on that pretty easily. I have a feeling. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean none of them really have a good reason for wanting to like take that power. I do feel like maybe I could see Garrick as like he was burnt out so much and there was so much expectation on him being like the reason they could win or needing to get more weapons or something like that, that maybe then he channeled to like be able to like jump spaces again would be his motivation, I think. Bodhi's motivation, I feel like, is he's so clear that he wants to like die defending Xaden and defending his province. Like he like overtly says that's his role. It's not to like take over for Xaden. So I could also see Bodhi turning in like the same reason that Xaden basically to thinking he was saving Violet, and he was more, but like Bodhi thinking he's saving Xaden to rule, like and being tricked, you know?
Yeah.
So I could see it. I could see it. Again, when will we find out? Who knows? Okay. Is there anything? Oh, the chapter then ends with Xaden talking to. Well, we didn't even talk about Xaden goes like hella dark. He knocks out everyone. He kills a bunch of people. Does he maybe kill whoever the new brother is? Like, are we even gonna find out? Because did Xaden just kill him?
I don't think so. Did he?
We know he dissolves the net that's around Sigale, and then he just knocks out Berwyn.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even think about that as a possibility.
Yeah. Either way, we also then get this scene of like his darkness, like going out over everywhere because he's channeled so much. Sigale is like yelling at him to stop, and that like she isn't worth like saving for him to like do this. I think it's really interesting. So we skipped over Sigale being like hurt and captured is like the trigger for Xaden that he's like, whatever, I'm more powerful than all of you. You can't treat Sigale this way. Like it's the ultimate, like it pushes him just way over the edge. But I think it's interesting because the first time he turns, it's out of this desperation to save Violet. And Sigale literally says to him, I chose you, like, stay with me. And he says, so did Violet, and picks Violet. And then in this section, he's doing so good being like, Violet will take care of herself. He's not channeling, not channeling, not channeling. And then it's Sigale being like put in danger that then sends him over the edge. And he's like, screw it. I'm going to go evil, essentially, because you can't treat Sigale this way.
Yeah.
So I just think that's interesting that both times he breaks, it's out of this like deep love for these like two most important people in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that. Xaden he channels a freaking ton to the point he moves up a level as a Venin, and his like black shadow power goes over at least the whole city. But even in the midst of that, it's like he says saving all the people she loves, even though it's people he loves too. Like we know he saves Imogen, he saves Dane, he's like doing something to hold Theophany back. So yeah, that's interesting. And then he like caresses Violet. She says she loves him. Yeah. And then jumping ahead, the chapter ends with Xaden talking to Sigale, saying that like he needs Violet to do something, and he's like, she'll do it, she loves me. And Sigale is like, Taryn hates you. And he's like, no, but Violet loves me, she'll do it. And Sigale is like, well, all our fate rests in her hands for whatever she chooses. And Sigale is like, Taryn's gonna try to talk her out of it, essentially. Xaden is convinced Violet will do it for him. We still don't know what this is. But this is even more suspicious with then how it ends. Particularly that Taryn is like unconscious because he's resting so much is what and Darna says he's resting. But we just know like the connection is not there. So I'm like, did something happen to Taryn? Violet wakes up. She has a wedding ring. She's married to Xaden. She now is the Duchess of this province, and it's under her like command, and she apparently asked Imogen to wipe her memory of whatever it was. So I think my guess is whatever Xaden asked of her, which could be simply to marry him and take the country, but then Sigale wouldn't be like our fate rests in her hands. Like Sigale doesn't care about the succession, you know? They specifically have a line that dragons don't care about succession. So I think it's more likely something else also happens.
I didn't think about that because I was like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, it was about marrying, but yeah, I
I
feel
think like it had to have been something darker that he also asked. Like maybe if it was Bodhi, maybe Violet kills Bodhi. Maybe she not like I don't know. I think it's something else, and then she wanted to forget that because it was like
yeah,
too dark.
you know.
That's my guess. Either way, we won't know. But Andarna is like hiding. Andarna does not reveal herself. She stays like hidden when everyone else comes out. So these people don't know Andarna is back. We don't know why Andarna is back, but essentially she's there to watch over Violet to make sure they don't kill her to get to Xaden or for like some kind of treason she's just done. Because why else would they specifically say fire her, and Violet's like, why would Brennan like come at me with fire? And typically when people use Dragonfire, it's like their version of like trial, like the executioner. So that's what I think. I think she either committed treason or it's to get to Xaden or both is why they killed her. And maybe if she committed treason, that's why she asked Imogen to erase her mind.
Yeah, I had seen a TikTok before I had read this that I quickly scrolled away from, which I understood the context of immediately after reading this, asking about Dane and his ability to read minds, if he can read minds that have been erased.
Mm.
Which I'm like, I feel like that's really, really unlikely that that would happen because Violet wouldn't let him. I don't think so, but I did.
Yeah, I also don't think he can. Like, I think that's the
Yeah.
whole point. Like, Imogen's power is useless. If it's like,
I mean,
well,
not useless, but yeah,
yeah,
I get what you're saying,
like
but
much less if in the scheme of like magic always needs a balance. There's a balance to every signet, like I think Imogen is like a balance to Dane.
we also learn that there are a tally of at least 6 missing eggs from the hatching crown, which I feel like 6 is a very significant number because if there's one of each and they have an Irid, they could make a ward. So I just was wondering about that too. I don't know.
I also think it's like noteworthy, like the islands previously asked for one of each, they asked for two of each kind. So they wanted 12. I'm just thinking of like specifically 6 and that being like something we would note previously. Yeah, maybe something like that is tied with Violet. Maybe they're bringing them to the Feathertails to somehow like redeem that. Like maybe Violet stole the eggs within Darna. Maybe it's not even related to freaking Xaden. And they're bringing him to the Feathertails. And
Yeah.
it's like a nature versus nurture thing. I don't know. There's honestly so many things it could be. There's a million questions the last couple chapters like open up, which again, classic book 3, but it's more stressful because I want Rebecca Yarros to take time off. And realistically, I'm like, that means like probably 2 years, I think is like the soonest we'll get the next book.
Yep, I think so.
That's my guess. Which hopefully, we'll get the next ACOTAR book in 2026. And then we'll at least have one giant reveal or one big book to freak out about for everyone. Yeah. Anyways, also, I'm just going to say apparently, Sarah J. Maas has said that for the next ACOTAR book, you need to have read everything she's written up until then. And I'm like, that's such a more intense reread than being like, I'm going to reread just like 2 books like this series, or I'm going to reread the 5 ACOTAR books. Like, this is like, I'm going to reread 14 books.
I have to say, I hate that. I hate that it's saying that you have to read everything, especially from. Okay, so I've read Throne of Glass now, and I have read ACOTAR. I have not read Crescent City yet, but it is on my list. And from my understanding, potential spoilers, so don't listen if you don't want to, but my understanding is that Crescent City is tied into ACOTAR, is what I have heard, and that there's some characters that come in, whatever. And so that makes sense to me. But to somehow tie in Throne of Glass, which it's not tied in at all to either series right now, is it? I don't care if you spoil that for me, but
It is, but so much more subtly. Like, you cannot read you can't read Crescent City if you haven't read ACOTAR. It won't make sense. Like,
yeah.
because the tie-in is like very big. There are more like Easter egg things. Like, there are books from the Throne of Glass library that then show up in the like personal library of this character in Crescent City. And then there's some fan theories, like there people think that a different Crescent City character has the wedding ring of one of the characters in Throne of Glass, and one of the characters is named after this like old god, and it ties in with Throne of Glass. So there's some tie-in. It's not like, but again, the plot, you understand the plot, you know? So my thought is, if they're gonna tie in Throne of Glass, it has to be through like an object or something. Or my only other thought is if it's in reference to, this is a very big spoiler for Kingdom of Ash, but the end of Kingdom of Ash, when she's falling through the universes, and it like is basically saying like that Rhysand sees her and like slows down her ascent, if somehow that's referenced. But they even kind of reference that in Silver Flame. They talk about like red meteors going through, a red meteor going through the sky. So I don't know. But I do believe you would have to read Crescent City, because there's some interactions, like things happen that are going to impact characters and some of the world building moving forward in pretty big ways with one character specifically. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me to tie in a whole nother series that has 8 books. Like,
Yeah. 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 I don't know. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Again, my guess is it's going to be like an object from that world that then they will like be discovering more about, that we will already know about, because it's someone's like weapon or relic or something like that. That's kind of the most I think they would tie in. So yeah.
whole other tangent. Different
Anyways,
series, different authors.
what a time. What a time. Either way, guys, thank you for listening to this very long podcast. We have now finished our multi-month tangent away from the Twilight universe, to reread these books. It's been such a breath of fresh air. We are going to take a brief break before we jump into Breaking Dawn, which will be the next book we read, followed by Life and Death. So, yes, we think it's going to be a 2-week break that we take before we jump into Breaking Dawn. So just be aware of that.
Before we completely end, you were starting a list of things you wanted to come back to at the end. Are there things we didn't come back to you want to talk about?
Who knows? I mean, let's see.
I don't remember at all what anything was. So,
Oh, the main thing to talk about in this one was who you think slash do you think there are Venin that are higher up in Besgaiath? So I was saying like I didn't feel like we could talk about that until we talked about like Panchek's role. Um, but yeah, if there's anyone else you thought of, I feel like we've talked about so many different theories at this
yeah.
point that I don't feel like we need to really cover it more.
I also
Um,
didn't have anything specific for that, just that there probably was someone. Didn't
yeah,
really think about who. So,
yeah, uh-huh, yeah. Anyways, um, there's that. Just crazy, goofy nonsense, intense crying, all the things. I have a lot of emotions. I thought this book was great. We didn't talk about final review, Onyx Storm.
yeah.
5 star for me. Loved it. Thought it was the best of the three.
Yeah. I think I was thinking before I started reading today what I was thinking that I would give it. And I was thinking like 4.5-ish, and then I was like, well, maybe a little higher because I liked it more than Iron Flame, and I think I gave Iron Flame 4.5. But then with everything that happens at the end, 5 stars. Like it's crazy, but I loved it. So
Yeah. I do think the crazy ending. Again, I have not read any other series by Rebecca Yarros. I don't know. Uh, there's certain authors I like trust to pick up some cliffhangers. Like I've reserved a lot of judgment for the Crescent City series, which people have come at hard and been very harsh on the last book. But for me, I don't feel like I need to judge it harshly because she's built trust with like Throne of Glass that she can pick up threads from 7 books ago and
yeah.
weave them into the story. So I'm not worried about all the loose ends. Here, I'm like, today, 5 stars. It was my favorite of the 3 books so far. Then I would say Fourth Wing next, Iron Flame, my least favorite, although they all were like at least 4 star reads for me. But I will say it's the kind of thing like to leave this much open. If we don't get like satisfying answers to some of these, it would be very annoying and it would make me like lessen my review overall. But probably not that much because I really enjoyed it. I liked it basically the whole time through. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I like the direction it's heading. I think we're just going to get more lore moving forward. So that's the stuff we live for around here. Yeah. We got weird grandmas to visit. We've got
We didn't
dragon
even
lore.
talk about the grandma barely. Oh my
We
God.
didn't. We skipped that entire thing.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I mean, we talked about the implications, like what Mira finds out
Yeah.
from her grandma. But yeah, we've got family history to unpack. We've got dragon lore, the Irids. We've got mystery eggs. We've got Venin lore, Venin politics, city politics. Violet is going to take over like a political role now. There's a lot. We got a lot of the stuff that makes books so delicious to me coming up.
I don't know
So
how that's going to get wrapped up in just 2 books. I feel like it needs to be more.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I wonder how big the books are going to be.
Yeah. I'm guessing, I mean, they've all been five, at least 500, 500 to 600 pages.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like if she does another like 500 to 600, and then the last one is like 700. That's my guess.
yeah.
We can make all these guesses and then come back to them in 2 years. Woohoo.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right. Thanks again for real, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.